The only time you hit rock bottom is when you decide this is enough. And I had a moment where I heard a voice say, you've had enough alcohol for at least 2 lifetimes and you got to be done with this.
Welcome to The Change Effect, the podcast that helps you turn life transitions into powerful new beginnings. One story, one shift, one breakthrough at a time. I'm your host, Noelle Van, an author, leadership coach, and change strategist who spent years in corporate America helping innovators and leaders break through barriers to create success on their own terms. I now work with women to step into change to create a life they love. Whether you're putting yourself at the center of your own story, redefining success, or making a power pivot in your life, career, or business, you're in the right place. Each week, we dive into conversations with trailblazers, changemakers, and everyday women experiencing the ripple effects that come from overcoming the fear and doing it anyway, providing actionable steps, practical strategies, and a whole lot of fun along the way. So if you're ready to step up and become unstoppable, buckle up and let's get started. Change has a way of showing up at the exact moment we decide we can no longer ignore what's no longer serving us. And for countless women in midlife, that moment arrives when they finally see alcohol for what it is, a distraction from their deeper truth. Lori Massicot is a midlife sobriety coach and founder of Team Alcohol Free, a global community for women who are ready to redefine their relationship with alcohol and reclaim their lives with clarity, confidence, and purpose. After decades of using alcohol to cope with anxiety, self-doubt, and the pressure to do and be everything, Lori decided to stop drinking and start living. In 2013, she reached a powerful turning point. She chose to walk away from the numbing cycle of drinking, not because she hit dramatic rock bottom, but because she was ready for more joy, more energy, more life. Now, over a decade alcohol-free, Lori has helped thousands of women navigate the emotional, social, and identity shifts that come with sobriety in midlife. Through her private coaching, thriving community, and top-ranked podcast to 50 and Beyond, she offers a compassionate and empowering approach to sobriety-free from labels, shame, or perfection. She believes sobriety isn't about giving something up, it's about getting your life back. Today, we're talking about the courage to choose yourself, the myths you've been sold about midlife, and how living alcohol-free can unlock deeper purpose, emotional freedom, and true well-being. Lori, it's so wonderful to have you back here on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Noelle. Thank you for that lovely introduction. That is so nice.
Well, it was, it's so funny, Lori, because you and I think this has been about 2 years now. You were like on my 3rd podcast episode, I think, or something crazy like that. Yes. So we have some things to talk about because it's been 2.5 years since we last spoke.
We do. And I just want to congratulate you. I was telling you, I was listening to one of your episodes while I was getting ready. You do such a good job. And just for knowing you, and you were just on my podcast again also, because you've been on 250 and Beyond 3 times, I believe. Yes. So that was your 3rd visit, right? Yeah. It's just how you come across, and you're so encouraging and calming to me. Like, that's what I was thinking about when I hear your voice, just hearing the intro. Like, you just have that voice that helps me get really centered. And I think that's so important in life and being a midlife woman and where you are, but also as a podcaster. That's what I want to say. But making your guests feel very welcomed and centered.
Oh, thank you, Lori. I hope they feel that way, because that's what it's about, right? We're having conversations about some really good stuff. I want to give the listeners kind of an idea of your story, just so we can ground everybody. Maybe you can give us a little bit of background, just a little bit about yourself.
Do you want the drinking version or the just 57-year-old woman version?
Oh, gosh. Well, maybe a little bit of both, right?
So the night that I stopped drinking was August 11th, 2013. I started when I was 14, and I was 45 in 2013. And I just had reached a point where I was done getting the same results from my drinking. I was worried about my drinking. I spent 2 years sitting up and paying attention, like I like to say, to a word that was presented to me, alcoholic, from somebody in my family. And that was the first hit that I got that, hey, maybe I'm not the party girl anymore that I created when I was 14 years old. Something is changed here. And it had been changed for a long time with my drinking and my relationship to how it was getting to levels where I just felt like I wasn't even getting the good stuff from it anymore, because that's what alcohol does. So at 45, after 2 years of trying to moderate, trying to cut back, trying to say to only drink on Saturday, constantly disappointing myself, One night there was no rock bottom because I had hit several before. But the only time you hit rock bottom is when you decide this is enough. And I had a moment where I heard a voice say, you've had enough alcohol for at least 2 lifetimes and you got to be done with this. And I was all by myself. My husband and my son were camping, and I poured my Chardonnay that I had on deck down the sink. And I stood in the kitchen and I literally cried thinking, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do this, but I'm going to try. That's where I was because I was so over it. I was over myself at that point.
You know, it's crazy. I think because I quit at 44, I mean, after having stopped and then started again, right? So I had a couple of attempts. And when you describe that negotiation, like I can remember that so distinctly of like, well, so I won't drink on weekends, right? You go through the bargaining process with yourself. And then once you finally make that decision now, although it's terrifying, because when you just said you were crying at the sink, like I was sitting on my bed and I was crying. And I can remember thinking, like, what am I going to do? Not having a clue, but being so like resolute for some reason. There was this resolution that I had that I didn't know. I had no idea how it was going to work, but somehow I had to do it.
Oh, for sure. And I feel like at that point in my life, it was a moment where I heard that message coming through, you've had enough.
Yeah.
Because I knew there was never going to be enough. Also, the way that I was drinking and trying to chase enough and get back to really that place I was in my 20s when I actually was the party girl and I enjoyed. I think that there was so much nostalgia around there that I didn't even realize until much later on, and that I'm realizing today at 12 years sober. But yeah, I had that moment where if I don't do this now, there was an urgency. I don't think I'm ever going to do it. And I could have easily said the next day, woken up and said, okay, well, forget that. I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But when my husband came home, that's when I told him I can't drink anymore. And he had seen it and I had talked to him about it. And we met in a bar in 1997 and we drank a ton together. And I said, I cannot drink anymore. I can't do it to myself, because I would say that with the negotiating, I would tell him, whatever I do, like I needed a keeper, whatever I do, don't go and buy me alcohol. Sunday was my biggest drinking day. Towards the end, I wasn't drinking nightly. And I'm not excusing this. It's just the honest truth. I wasn't drinking nightly because I was having a hard time recovering from my drinking. So it was not, the next day like it was in my 20s and I could just pick it back up again and everything was great. It was, okay, if I drink over the weekend, I'm feeling it till Wednesday. And I had started a cleaning business and it was really affecting my work. So I set myself up with, okay, the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then I tapered off of Friday. When we're finding freedom from alcohol, it's really important to pay attention to that time where you get that first signal. And for so many women, it could be decades, right?
Yes.
But like, listening to podcasts or listening to podcasts or reading books about sobriety or anything like that, we're freeing ourselves during that time, even if we're still drinking. I was freeing myself during that time. It's just that was my process.
Well, the contemplation alone is that seed that's planted, right? Honestly, the nudge for me probably was, 5-6 years before I ended up quitting. I mean, I had that voice every morning. I would hear that voice of like, what are you doing? And so it's crazy how that can sort of get you to that place. And then you hit the moment and then but I love that when you said you told your husband about it, because I felt like once I told family, it made it real. Because then it was like, well, what am I going to now start again? Like that? I can't do that. I've already told people that I've stopped. I mean, it was silly things like that would go through my head. Not that it was actually a good choice for me to make for my health perspective, but like, well, I can't jump back in now because I've already put it out.
For sure. I think that we all deserve to have that accountability, but asking for it and sharing what you're doing, that's hard stuff. And so I think that when I say, and I talk about this on the podcast and in my community, going all in and committing and not going back and forth, not leaving even a tiny crack in the door back to alcohol, it's like shutting it, we're done, we're moving on, it's not an option. I think that's one of the signs when you do open up to somebody. So I think that you can look at that as like, okay, that's different. I don't normally do that. And now I'm telling people, okay, I'm all in. And I think that we can definitely boost our confidence by doing that. Like, okay, this time is different, because so many women have that same story, the back and forth, worrying about their drinking for decades, taking breaks, taking long extended breaks and going back. And it's just that moment where you realize, okay, this is different than the last time I did this or the previous times I've tried, and allowing that into your life and really, really going all in with that.
Yes. Yes.
It doesn't happen overnight.
No, it does. I mean, it is a process. And that's the thing, because I think that some of us think, or at least I think way back in the back of my mind, I always thought it was going to be this magical moment, and it wasn't. It was no like, it was not like I woke up and I was somewhere I didn't know where I was. No, it was none of that. It was like, no, the choice had to be made and it was done, like done. So yeah.
And that's
it's
a good
different for
point too,
everybody.
for anybody who's listening and feels like, there has to be that rock bottom, or maybe that's their vision of like when somebody tells me, when I hear that word, or when my doctor tells me that I need to cut back on alcohol or anything like that, or when it gets this bad, say, no, we don't need to do that, especially in midlife. We just know in our heart and soul, trusting our intuition more, like this
Yes.
doesn't feel aligned to who I am or where I want to go in life. It just doesn't. And whenever we're out of alignment with ourselves, it's just that push and pull, push and pull. And then you wake up in the morning and you feel down about yourself. And that's how so many women are starting their day.
Yes. Well, and this is a bit of a segue into the whole midlife thing, because I think that what's so important in what you do is not only obviously helping women to free themselves from alcohol, but also in midlife, as we know. And I mean, you and I are similar in terms of our sobriety timeline. I mean, to some degree, we've both been around over a decade, right? You're 12 and 14. So we've been sober for many, many years. Going through menopause, I will tell you, the fact that I got up and over that hump, alcohol-free, is a miracle. But when I think about that, like there's so many women in midlife that are going through that as well. So, which is even more reason for people to want to take the edge off. When hormones are going nutsy, it's a little hard to not fall into that. So do you get women that are within that are in the middle of menopause and wanting to become alcohol-free, or how does it show up?
At all stages, I've worked with women who are starting to look at, oh, maybe this change in my cycle or my mood or something like that, that's like signifying that I'm at that perimenopause stage. Yeah. I get women, of course, who are in perimenopause, and a lot of women who are like me post, because menopause is one day and you celebrate, and then the next day you wake up and you go, okay, done. Right. But then we still have some of the things, right? Everybody's different. But, some of the things, and when you add alcohol to that, yeah, it's really difficult. So when you said I went through all of that without drinking alcohol, yes, like that's part of it. That's a big part of it, because we're looking to help ourselves with all of the things that perimenopause brings to our life and our emotional, our physical, our overall health, right? Yeah. By adding alcohol to it, it's not really a solution at all. It actually is
more painful. I mean, like when I think about that, I say that laughingly of like, oh, wow, I got through, because I feel like menopause just gave me a run for my money. But with that said, then when I think about if I had been drinking it, there's no way. I think it would have done the opposite, because we always felt that we were taking that edge off in drinking. And yet it was amping up our anxiety. It was amping. And there were so many things from a physiological standpoint that it does to your body that not until you stop do you start to recognize, oh, wow, okay, so I was thinking having that glass of wine was calming me down, but that was actually amping up my anxiety. So I think I'd already put that equation together by that point, that once menopause came along, it was like, no, this is bad enough. I don't think I want to add fuel to this fire. So in a way.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's good that we're talking about it. And I just made a note about it, because it's so important to recognize how alcohol does affect perimenopause and menopause. And again, everybody is different, but that how it could play an effect, and it could play a role in heightened anxiety. Of course, not getting the full night's rest. It doesn't matter how many hours, but just that quality deep sleep, because alcohol disrupts us in the middle of the night. I would wake up at 1 a.m. and just never be able to go back to sleep. And just in our mood and how we feel about ourselves, and especially if we're in that place where we don't want to drink anymore, but we're drinking.
Yes.
And I just know that place, and I know that feeling. And to get out of it and to give yourself an honest chance at perimenopause without drinking alcohol, it's so important. And that is why I did quit drinking. I was in the thick of perimenopause, and I just knew It was one of those things, not the only reason that I quit drinking. One of those things where I thought, I keep pushing up against that. My body's changing. They call it a change for a reason. Everything is changing, and I'm still doing the same things as I was doing in my 20s and trying to recreate that. I didn't say that to myself at the time, but this I know for sure. I just wanted to get that good vibe from drinking alcohol. And everything really revolved around it at that time in my life. My son's birthday parties. I mean, there was alcohol at everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
You do realize that pretty quickly, like alcohol is
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. But are you finding women that are coming to you now? I'm just curious because I feel like I've been kind of out of the recovery circles for a while, just other than for my own social circles. But have you found that women that are wanting to quit alcohol are in that midlife stage? Are you getting women that are not in midlife that are coming to you to ask for advice, for guidance? I'm just kind of curious of what the landscape is out there right now in terms of awareness and what people are looking for in their lives, just especially because of what's going on in the world.
Yeah, typically. And it's funny. This is what I've been thinking about, Noelle, after I created this like whole midlife thing, right?
Yes.
It's like, what is midlife to you? Let me ask you that. What would midlife be to you? Like, what is that age where you go, okay, I'm at midlife?
Well, I feel like I'm at midlife now in my 50s.
Okay, so you're going to live to be 120.
Oh, sure.
For sure.
Well, my grandfather did live to 106, so we'll see.
Yeah.
I have the genetics.
So honestly, I mean, looking at that, so midlife, I always said 35 and over. I just don't say that anymore. I feel like it's whatever age you want to be in that place. Like it would not be if somebody came to me, and I think I'm answering this, but if somebody came to me and they were 30 or they were like even younger, like, no, I wouldn't say I can't work with you. It's just, I do it because I know how difficult it was at 45. And I considered myself midlife at that time for sure. Yeah. So I work with average, I would say, gosh, it's even hard to say. Some of my clients are in their 40s for sure. Mm-hmm. I've worked with women in their late 30s. And a lot of my clients are around the same age as me. So 50s. Yeah. And then, of course, 60s and 70s. I mean, in my community, that's the range for sure. It's really, I don't know anybody under 40 in the community, but it's really ranges all the way up to early 70s.
I love that. Tell me more about this community, because I'm so intrigued by it. I think it's such a great thing you've been doing.
Gosh, I started my first community in 2018 on Facebook, and I did a group called From Aging to Ageless. And I think I charged $18. I did a workbook, and I did like a bunch of lives over a week. I just started the podcast in 2018. And so I had this little group, and I fell in love with the interaction that was happening in that group and people coming together. They had met. I mean, I think I had like some of my high school friends in there, and then some of my other like outside sobriety friends were in there, women who came from the podcast. I mean, it was a small group, but I just remember thinking, this is really cool. Like they're coming together and they're meeting each other and they're having conversations. And I fell in love with it from there. So I've run several different groups and communities. I had a community for a while called Elevate. And then I went into like, I'm going to switch it up in 2020 and do a 6-week program called The Alcohol-Free Habit. And so I did that. Nice. And I got the women into the 6-week program where we would meet weekly. And at the end of it, because they were connecting just like that, making friends, finding support, feeling that relief, like, oh my gosh, we're not alone in this. I thought, well, okay, I can't quit them. I don't know what I'm going to do, because I had like a community on Mighty Networks, which is where my community is now. Long story, I just kept it going. Yep. There was not an additional cost or anything. I just kept it going, included new members into the program. That kept growing. And then I took a year off, really 2022, to figure out like, what are we going to be doing? But we were still meeting, I think like maybe once a month, maybe once a week. Yeah. So I just kept it going. And in 2023, I started thinking about, this is what women need. Of course, we need so many different things when we're transitioning to an alcohol-free lifestyle, but having a community of women who are walking this walk with you and who get it and who understand without judgment and can say, I'm here, I'm going to support you. That's it. That's it for me. I think for as far as being a coach, my private clients go into the community if they choose. It's an offer for them. I just feel like that's the key. That's nice. And especially as we get older. So Anyway, I thought of the name Team Alcohol Free because we are a team of women coming together.
Yes.
And just the whole mission of it and the feeling of it is just it's a team. It
Yeah.
really is. It's a
Well,
team.
I love that because, and when you think about the community that you're building and it's not, or that you have built and that you continue to build, it's that accountability too. I mean, there is that built in, right? So not only do you have the support from women around you, but you also there is a sense of accountability when you're a part of something that's not just you sitting at home on your own, right? Because we all like to kind of go it alone. And that sort of was our MO for so many years. And now it's like, oh, actually, the group situation is what's going to fuel me and what's going to keep me going and all that. I think that's just wonderful. What are some of the things that come up with women that are the biggest sort of hurdles for them when they're first getting into this alcohol-free lifestyle? I mean, I know it probably runs the gamut, right?
It runs the gamut. I'll tell you what I'm noticing more than ever within the last couple of years. And this is in no particular order, but I would say number one, not taking time for themselves. So many women, we love to please other people. We love to take care of our loved ones. We love to do all those things. And we were so used to doing it for so many years. And we get to this point where we realize, okay, the drinking was helping me come down from that, was helping me take time for myself. That was really part of it. Like for me, I always looked at drinking as, this is my treat. This is my reward. This is my self-care. And then that kind of stopped in my 40s. I wasn't looking at it like that. Now I was looking at it as this has become a really bad habit, but it was more than that, of course. But women, honestly, are finding it difficult to say, me too, or me first, like making time for themselves so they don't get in that cycle where drinking alcohol is the solution that comes in and helps them feel the reprieve from always going and always doing and taking care of other people.
Yes.
That's one of the things that I see is very challenging to get going because it's like, how do you get out of it? Any cycle really that we create, this around drinking alcohol, if it's for stress relief or if it's to bond or if it's to be around certain people, if it's to be with your spouse or your partner and that's what you do, it's going to be a challenge to remove the alcohol because it's about change.
Yes.
In sobriety, we're changing. And again, we're changing in midlife. So I believe that those two things together, they will bring forth a change most of us probably never even imagined for ourselves in our lives.
Yes.
But it's scary. It's scary to think of that. And even the most comfortable people, I've always said, I love change. I love it. I love it so much. But oh boy, I hold myself back from it all the time. So it's difficult.
Yes. Well, and the one thing I think that I just gleaned from that when you were talking about people that don't want to, it's the self-care piece is sometimes really difficult. And I have come to realize the more in my sobriety, I learned this more and more and more, how I was dissociated from my body to such a degree that I didn't even know how I was feeling in the moment half the time. Once I started so it's a difficult thing to say, wow, I really need a break. You think of it as a habit. It's something like I'm going to sit down and I'm going to have my glass of wine and this is me time. But then once you're out of that zone and you're now really feeling that emotion in your body, it's a whole different ballgame. And that's the one thing I say to people when we talk about sobriety of like, you just wait because things start to become clearer and clearer and clearer. And then you can start identifying and those moments become easier because you can start to feel it in your body. And it's like, okay, I need a pause. I need to take a walk. I need to do, but it's like the communication comes back. It's like communication with your body and we
cannot connect with ourselves in a way where we can make sense of things if we're drinking as a life management tool, for sure. I mean, it's like, I remember being 90 days in thinking, it was the moment of like, oh boy, was I adding to my anxiety? Then I start questioning myself. And when you get to that place, just as a reminder for anybody who's there, when you get there, just remember it's okay. You're doing something differently now, because at that point I started to say, why didn't you see this sooner? Well, it was really difficult, Lori, because you were drinking alcohol a lot.
Right.
And it was messing with you. And alcohol is one solution. I'm going to give it to you there. It's one solution. When we stop drinking alcohol, we can come up with a plethora of solutions to help us with other things. And then we start going, well, shoot.
Yeah.
Yes, this is making a huge difference. But it's really difficult. I will say this, and I don't really like to make broad terms, but if you want to really get clear on what's going on with you, especially in perimenopause or menopause, and like how you're feeling and how you think about things, especially if you're worried about your drinking, you got to give yourself a lot of distance away from alcohol to be able to do that.
Yes. And I mean, clarity is one word, but it's also coming back. You come back to yourself. Have you seen this before? And this, I'm sure you have. And it could be on anything. And those shows, Intervention, that I used to be hooked on when I was first getting sober. I don't know why, but I had this sort of fascination with it. Maybe because it was my life. But I can remember, you see those pictures. I used to love the end because they would show the person after they'd been free from alcohol for 90 days and they had their face back. It was like the face, their expressions on their face, their pigmentation, everything was very different. And it was almost like, wow, like life was breathed back in.
That's what I feel too when I see those pictures. It just feels like, yes, it's just this different energy. And I'm not really into the aura or anything like that, but like you can just see it. And that matters so much in our lives, especially as people pleasers, because other people are going to see it. And I'm not saying get sober for anybody else. You got to be ready for yourself to do it, but it's going to show up on the outside. So if we can look at us taking care of ourselves and making ourselves a number one priority, then that's going to be the best way that we can help other people.
Yes.
And it sounds corny. I'm hearing myself say it and like, that sounds kind of corny, but it's good. And it could be corny.
It could be. And it's totally true. I think it's very true. And once you live it, you kind of are like, okay, I know I'm going to sound corny about this, but I've lived it. I've experienced it. So I know it to be true.
Yeah, I have to own my corny because I do that a lot on a podcast. I'm like, that sounds corny, but it's true. And then also what you said, like finding finding yourself, especially as we get older, now we're creating this new version of ourselves. So that's like, we're not abandoning our past, but there's that new version. And it's just those moments where you just think, wow, I can't believe like I'm actually doing this. That's what everybody deserves. Everybody in life deserves to be proud of themselves for doing something that they want to do and accomplishing it and working on it. Because we both know that recovery is a continuous amount of effort to keep
Absolutely.
it going.
It's an ongoing thing. Okay, but so let's talk a little bit about this because I want to talk about the good part of midlife. When you just said that, it just hit me because it's like when we get into our 50s and our 40s, late 40s, 50s, right? We look at life a little bit differently, but everybody is going to look at things a little bit differently as we get older. What do you think of what has been your biggest lesson so far in midlife?
Biggest lesson. I want to make this good. This is corny too.
I want to hear it.
That I'm enough as I am, that I am like A-okay, 100% being me. And that's such a refreshing feeling because I worked really hard for a long time. And when you start drinking at 14, I don't know if I would ever be able to find myself like going back to her and where I was when I started drinking, because there was that need to belong and to fit in, even though I was very popular in high school. I always had a lot of friends, I was always very open with people and like I had different groups of friends. I was very shy and I resisted that shyness, and the drinking helped me find that courage and to find this party girl version of me that I literally created in 1982 and I believed in until the day I stopped drinking. What is going to happen when I thought people saw me as that. No, I saw myself as that. It was like this alter ego that I had created. And so just being myself, it's taken years to be able to even say that. Like I totally accept myself. I like myself. There's days when I don't. There's days when I love myself. There's days when I beat myself up, all of it. But I know for a fact that I'm human and this is who I am. And it's who I'm supposed to be at 57, almost 58.
I love it. I love that. Well, and think about it too, when you say, even on the days that you beat yourself up, because I feel that too. I feel there's this sort of acceptance, but not even acceptance, because that doesn't feel like the right word, but it's almost like I have a calm now about who I am and what I have to offer. And so even on the bad days, even when you're beating yourself up, you recognize it as that's what you're doing. Versus when I think back in my 30s and I'd be all up in a spin. I'd be spun up about something, and then all day long I'd be worried and upset and insecure and all those things. But I feel like as we mature into who we're supposed to become, which is, I guess, what life's about, right?
Right.
To be going towards that. Like now that we're there, it's this sense of peace kind of that just it's hard to even articulate.
It's that inner peace. It is that inner peace for sure. Yes. I am here for it because, when you think about if I'm if you're trying to fit in with other people and you're trying to follow along, and so much about our drinking in society, it's like that's one of the barriers as well. Is like, well, what are people going to think about me if I don't drink, right? We're trying to follow along and fit in. That's so much work when we're feeling this pull to just be ourselves. And when you just say, I'm just going to show up as myself, it's no work at all. It's just very refreshing and very freeing, and it doesn't feel stressful. And, I'm getting to the age also where I'm just letting go of things that I used to tell myself that I had to do. And it's just changing things up and really finding less is more. I guess I will say that less is more. I always thought more and more and more was the best. I was like, no less. So less.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I wonder what that is about, because when you think of more is more, like I always think of, is that being productive? I want to be productive and I want to be effective in what I'm doing and all that. And these days it's a little less about that. I want to be productive in my life, but there's also this feeling of like, yeah, but at the cost of feeling crappy or not getting enough sleep or all that stuff. You start to weigh things. I just think it's time saver.
I think we talked about this on the podcast when you were on mine not that long ago. You might want to link that because that's a fantastic episode about leaving corporate and long-term recovery. But we were talking about like the identity, and like I think that I had mentioned having a brand, like being the brand. That's really hard to do. And for somebody who has, struggled with low self-esteem, the alcohol didn't help with that. Just getting to this point, I decided that conversation we had that day really helped me. But looking at it, like I've got like two different parts of me, two different versions. And the one that I'm the hardest on is the brand version of me. And I'm not finding that as much in my personal life, but they also intersect. And so that's what I'm working on right now, is to kind of separate myself, because it's like being enough. It's like I'm enough in my personal life, but then in my brand and my business, like I could never do enough. I'm always striving for more. So I'm trying to find some balance there, if that makes sense. It's like,
that makes a ton of sense. And I think that there is a bit of that is culturally around us, that like there's things that we think we're supposed to be doing in our business. I mean, I'm speaking for myself. I don't mean to speak for you, but like, I know that there's a lot that I could be doing out there and I shouldn't, why should I feel like I can't necessarily deliver in that way because I don't feel comfortable? And then there's a part of me that then sits back, and it's kind of like I relax back into the personal side of it and go, yeah, but that's not who I am. Yes. So if I did something like that, I wouldn't feel genuine. And that somehow makes it feels better, but there's always that pressure. I think that's just working for yourself. I think entrepreneurship is inherently, you're going to always have a little bit of that, but also being aware of that is helpful, because then you can just say, oh, there's that voice again. I know, it's just tapping me on the shoulder. It's okay. I can ignore it.
That could be a whole other episode, Noelle, like your personal life versus your business and your brand, and how that wraps up, because it can't be like, because of the ups and downs, especially, it can't be, I only feel good about myself when people are joining me, or, I'm hearing positive comments on the podcast or something like that. Like I did that for so many years when I first started out. It's like, no, I've got to be good with myself no matter where my business is, and it doesn't have anything like just untying that identity that's so wrapped up in that. It's almost untied, I think, but there's always days where you just go, think of how far you've come from that, right? Think of that. Yeah, that's probably taken time and energy, and really focus on not letting that shift your perspective, which is a big deal. And I hope that with your listeners, they're hearing that as well, if they're in that place where they're, we tie up so much of our worth in what we do. Yes. And to separate it and to be aware of it, that's the first step. You helped me with that. Oh, I'm glad I did. I think I should help myself more with it. I'm not there all the time. But I mean, once again, that's okay too, right? It's like, but is that the goal, to be there all the time? Is that the goal? Right? No, we got to shift the goals. We got to shift our goals. Go. Well, now speaking of your business, because I feel like you have gone through such an evolution, Lori, since you and I first have met. You have had lots of women that you've worked with. What's on the horizon for this next year? I know you've got the community. Are you going to continue to build the community? Like, what else is coming up for you? for sure going even more into the community, because I do feel like that is the space where women can come in, even if they don't join the meetings. I host 3 meetings a week. So we just had one this morning. I do 3 meetings a week. And even for the women, there's so many women in there who I've never met before in the meetings, but I hear from because there's a daily post feed with daily check-ins and reflections and, the comment sections. Like the comment section is the best part. That's where you can get so much encouragement and tips and just knowing that you're not doing this alone. So yes, definitely 2026. I have my whiteboard up. I've been working on it. I'm just like changing a few things up, adding a few little surprises and good stuff. We've done 2 years where we've done an in-person event. So we just had our Park City getaway in September.
Oh, that's right.
So we'll be doing more of that. If anybody is in San Diego and they want to join us, I'm in San Diego and several other gals are there. So I want to do more like local events, that, and then continuing on with 250 and beyond. And then, of course, my private coaching. I don't take on that many clients at a time because you just can't spread yourself too thin with all of it in this work. So continue to do the same things. I would like to add in doing a YouTube channel. And then also getting back on Instagram, because I got off of Instagram in 2021 for like 30 days. And I
love that.
Back. So I just started a new Instagram. So there's nothing on it, but, maybe getting back in there. I feel like I've isolated myself a little bit from being out on social media, but then at the same time, I don't know if that's for me.
Well, and I'm sure whatever break you took from that was a much needed break. And don't worry, you didn't miss anything. It's still going to be right back there when it's constantly going there. It's constantly there. But no, we're going to have all of Lori's links in the show notes, and we will link back to the past episode, because you're right. I think that was we had a really good conversation around that, and in case that's of interest. But Lori, it is always so wonderful to have you on, because not only are you're the person that got me into podcasting. You know this. You're the one who encouraged me to do this. So here's to you after 120 something episodes. I'm still doing it. And you told me, you said, before you know it, you're going to hit 100, or you said something like that. And I was like, no. And yeah, it came pretty fast. But you encouraged me. You were super helpful in that. So
well, you know why I did, and I do this with my friends because I know you, and like I said in the beginning, you come across as so calming and so helpful without judgment or with a long list of things that you need to do. Just a very honest conversation here. So I knew that you would be an excellent podcast host, and we need more of the midlife gals out there, even though there's quite a few midlife podcasts, but more of these conversations because it's so important. But I knew that you would be the excellent podcaster that you are. And you started out that way.
I so appreciate that. I do. I had someone to look up to because I knew that your podcast was so helpful to women. So thank you for that. So Lori, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Yes. All right. That's it for now. Until next time. Thanks for listening to the Journeys Through Change podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or really wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to follow us and leave a review if you enjoyed this episode so more women like you can find us and join in on the fun.